Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay. It's our WNBA check-in show, and usually we look at the past week of WNBA game results. Going to have a little bit of a different focus this week with Cece. We're a month in to the WNBA regular season. It started in the middle of May, so here we are, 1 week left in June. So we've had 5 weeks of basketball to digest. So it's kind of a good time to just kind of step back a little bit, look at the numbers. What do the analytics say? And why are the good teams good? Why are the bad teams bad? That's a really helpful thing to do 5 weeks into the season. So, Cece, what do the analytics actually say about the power structure of the W?
Yeah, it's crazy when I started doing this research. A lot of it I agree with, and some of it is, whatever whatever the analytics say is what the analytics say. But no surprise to all that my analytics tell me that the New York Liberty are by far the best team in the league with Jonquel Jones. I want to mention that with Jonquel Jones, they are the top ranked in offense with an offensive rating of 110.8, and they have the best defensive rating in the league, 91.3, and their net rating is a plus 19.5. So, I mean, they're really strong. They only allow 72 points a game per defense, or their defense allows only 72 points. Sorry, I just got an email per game, and it's a really exciting time for New York. Now, that being said, Jonquel is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and they just lost without her yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can come together as a team without Jonquel.
We'll continue to look at statistics, but just dealing with the Jonquel Jones factor. She got hurt in the loss at home to the Mercury. It would seem as though this opens the door for the Lynx to solidify their position as the number one seed in the playoffs. Just very briefly, in a Lynx Liberty finals, which we had last year, how much do you think having that final game at home would matter and perhaps tilt it to the Lynx from the Liberty?
It makes a big difference. But if we're going to talk about last year's game, again, we have to talk about the reffing in that game. I still believe Minnesota should have won that game, and the reffing was just horrible. But this year I think it's a different year with Jonquel or without Jonquel. I think Minnesota is the team to beat.
Yeah. All right. So continuing on our statistical profile, other key nuggets that you see from the numbers in the W.
Yeah, just the most surprising team, of course, is the Minnesota Lynx, and they have the best assists game in the league. They're averaging almost 24 assists per game. And I think we talked about Minnesota before and how I love watching them play because their offense is so fluid, and they might take two dribbles and just pass the ball. And it shows with their assists. They're really good team playing machine, I guess you could say. And yeah, 24 assists per game, and they have a defensive rating of 92.3. Of course, they're number one in the league right now with a 2 game lead over New York because New York just lost again, but they're just the most surprising team of the league. Now, I would say their coach has a lot to do with that. She's probably the best coach in the WNBA, and Cheryl Reeves, and she's got that team so focused on playing together, and she holds her players accountable. And I think that's what you see, the team, the players, they respect her, and so on and so forth. So Minnesota Lynx, my surprise team, uh, as far as surprise, surprise, we're here, that type of team.
I think in terms of surprises, we have to put the Phoenix Mercury up there in the conversation, in a really impressive win over the New York Liberty. So what's your deep dive on the Mercury in terms of the numbers and what they say about why Phoenix has been so surprisingly good? Obviously, you have Kalia Copper back from her injury, but of course, Phoenix got a lot of really good work done before she came back. So what do the numbers say about the Phoenix Mercury?
Yeah, Phoenix are the surprise, one of the surprise. There's a lot of them, but as far as statistics and just playing together as a team and the type of offense that they run and their size because they're not noted for being a big team. Um, but they're currently ranked number three as far as defensive rating in the W, which says a lot. Their rating is a 94.4. As far as assist, they're number five in 20.2. And I will tell you that the average assist, overall assist in the W right now is 20. So they're right at the average. And then their assist to turnover ratio is a 1.5. So that's really good. And then let me go down here. They allow 94.4 points per game, which puts them at number three. So they allow more points per game, but they still can play in fluidity to match that offensively. So, they have a high defensive rating. So go figure, right? They're number five, I said, or
Like I said, number three.
number three. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So let's this is a statistical deep dive, CC. So have you noticed teams that are finishing like top five in both offense and defense? How many teams are, really good or really bad in both, and how that matches what we're actually seeing on the court? Anything like that?
It's interesting that you say that because there are teams that have a high defensive rating, but they allow a lot of points. So that, to me is like really weird. I'm confused with that. But, like the New York Liberty, they're a really good defensive team, but they still allow a lot of points. That could be because of the pace of the game, right? The
Mhm.
pace of the game runs really fast. And so that could be what it's all about. So the pace of play is really important in the W.
So I think something fans would be interested in is, how much of this is pace and possessions, just volume, and how much of it is, in some cases, a lot of teams give up a lot of points because they give up live ball turnovers. Just they
Yeah.
throw the ball
Yeah.
away, it leads to an easy basket at the other end. It's not a verdict on their half court defense. Their half court defense doesn't have a chance to set up. So perhaps an interesting analytic avenue here, Cece, is how many teams are really hemorrhaging points allowed off turnovers. That might be a way to
Yeah.
differentiate in terms of points allowed, and just kind of people will look at an aggregate total points allowed and they might think, oh, their half court defense isn't really good, but it's
Right.
actually turnovers feeding baskets. Do you have any insights or any
Yeah.
team specific examples of how those kind of ratings split away from the raw numbers that you see on a stat sheet?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to pull those numbers, but I can tell you assist to turnover ratios, where New York Liberty, once again, they're number one in assist to turnover ratio. And the number 10 team is the Seattle Storm at a 1-to-1. So assist to turnover ratio, kind of defines that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, New York has a 1.98 assist to turnover ratio. So they're number one.
So like that's how you can really get some immediate context on defensive rating, but also these aggregate totals. And if you're wondering, why do they match or why do they not match? Other statistics can tell you, why there might be a certain numerical imbalance. That's why the Liberty are still really good, even though the aggregate totals of points allowed might seem a little higher than they should be. So that's the context I think a lot of fans we're looking for. All right, let's continue with your overview. What's the next statistical silo or perhaps a team that you wanted to look at through the lens of the numbers?
Yeah, I also looked at stuff and came up with the worst team in the WNBA right now as far as analytics and stats go overall. They might not be last in the league, but when you look at analytics, the worst team in the W right now is surprisingly the Las Vegas Aces. The Las Vegas Aces current record is 5-6. They're falling below 500. They're among the bottom teams in offense, defense, and net rating. Um, they have Asia Wilson, but they have poor 3-point efficiency. They're not playing together as a team. They're one of the lowest they are the lowest in assists average per team. Like I said, the average is 20. They're in last place with an average of 16.4 assists per game overall. So they're just lacking. They're not, and defensively, they're one of the worst teams in the league. I yell at them all the time when I watch them on TV. Like they are so lazy on defense. So, um, they're the worst team in the WNBA right now, statistically speaking,
And to
what the
me,
analytics show.
And to me, so much of what you just said goes to Jewel Lloyd, right? Like she's the person who's dragging down that team more than any other, right? If it's a team-wide thing. Like teams don't play defense. It's not as though one person doesn't play defense. But if you had to drill deeper and say one person is really kind of creating a negative downward pull, it would have to be Jewel Lloyd, right?
Kind of disagree with that. Jewel
Okay.
Lloyd doesn't like to play defense, but I truly believe, as good as offensive machine that Chelsea Gray can be sometimes. Defensively, she is such a liability for their team. She does not play defense, doesn't want to play defense, doesn't like to run. She just likes to pass and look good, in my opinion. And she's getting older. So I think that she is a bigger liability than Jewel Lloyd. Jewel Lloyd is a liability because she doesn't like to play defense as well. But um, their whole offense and defense, they're just not playing there's no continuity on that team, and I feel really bad for Asia because she is the engine, and Chelsea Gray has her good moments and her bad moments, but they're just cohesively not together defensively and offensively. That's just my opinion.
Does just to follow up here on the aces, since we're talking about this, was Kelsey Plum just the glue holding everything together when Chelsea Gray wasn't exposed to this extent as a liability, or what was it about the Aces' previous roster before these shakeups that really held everything together?
They knew their roles. Like you got to remember, Jewel Lloyd comes in and she comes from Seattle where she was the star. They were trying to build that franchise around her once Brianna Stewart left. That didn't work. So now she's on the Aces with a bunch of stars. And I think there's just a continuity problem. Whereas Plum, she knew her role. She understands her role. She leaves the Aces and goes to the Sparks, and they're building around Kelsey. So it's totally opposite. So I think that's where the difference is. Kelsey knew her role. She played her role to a T. Defensively, she was a lot better than what Jewel Lloyd is providing. So, yeah, Kelsey Plum, like I said, leaving and then getting Jewel Floyd. I said this before. It's not the flex that they thought it was going to be. And I'm
And it would
sticking by
certainly,
that.
yeah, I mean, and it would certainly seem that having Jewel Lloyd and Chelsea Gray on the same roster, not the best roster construction,
Yeah,
right? 'Cause you have,
yeah, I still think that they need to put a package together. And like I said last week, everybody is available to trade on the Aces other than Jackie and Asia. I think everybody, if there's a package put together, I think you would see the general management team ship whoever they need to ship out, because defensively they have to get better. I mean, for them being the bottom, defensively and offensively, something's got to change.
yeah, I mean, we would generally say that, just in terms of actual talent and results, the Connecticut Sun are the worst team in the W, but in terms of underachieving relative to expected standards, the Aces would indeed be number one, or perhaps, no, at the bottom in that regard. You don't want to be number one in underachieving, but the Aces are a point you have made pretty clearly and also convincingly. All right, let's continue with our statistical deep dive on the W. Where do you want to go next, Cece?
We can talk about rookies real quick. I do want to circle back around and talk about the Valkyries. Statistically, they're in the middle of the pack. And well, we can talk about it right now. They're in the middle of the pack in everything they do. But what I love about the Valkyries is they just don't give up. They play so hard for their coach and for each other. Like they go into a game saying, "We can beat you. We don't care who you are." And I love watching the Valkyries play. I'll watch the Valkyries over the Sparks, and I'm an LA native. But if the Sparks and the Valkyries are on at the same time, I'm putting on the Valkyries because, man, they just play with a lot of energy. They don't care. I watched them play yesterday, and Caitlin Chen got a chance to play, and she performed really well. So I'm just super, super happy to see the Valkyries doing so well in their first year because nobody thought they would with the team that they had. And they're just proving everybody wrong. And they're one of the best defenses in the W, by the way.
Yeah, I mean they blew out the Sun by over 20 points on Sunday. So, if you're you know, people will say, well, it's just the Sun. But we all know winning any individual game in any professional sport is hard. It's an achievement. Like you have to go out as a professional, you're playing other professional athletes, you have travel, injuries, all these things to deal with. Like you have to go and put out the effort. You can't just roll out the ball. So it really does say something. Even though it's the Connecticut Sun, for the Valkyries to absolutely blow the doors off them, it shows the maturity and also the hunger of that team in San Francisco. They continue to put together a really strong season. All right,
Yeah.
let's continue with our statistical deep dive. Next stop on the tour, Cece.
We're going to tour at the rookies right now. We're going to tour with the rookies, and we're going to talk about how good some of these rookies are doing this season. And start off by Paige Beckers. We'll get to Kiki because she's USC, but Paige Beckers. She didn't win Rookie of the Month last month. I think she's going to win it this month with the way she's playing, and she's currently playing 35 minutes per game. She's averaging 18 points per game, best in the W as far as rookies are concerned. I think best in the league overall right now. She's averaging the most points. Assists per game. She's averaging 6 assists per game. Blocks. She's even averaging. She's not. She's of the rookies. She's number one in blocks with a point 0.9. So you might as well say 1 block per game. Her 3-point percentage needs some work. It's at 32% right now. But, I used to always say teams need to be between 31 and 35. Their players need to be 31 and 35 in the 3-point shooting. So she's, 32%. And then her field goal overall is a 46%. So she's starting to feel comfortable because I think Dallas made a switch and they said, this is Paige's team. This is no longer Enrique's team. I think that's where the switch came in. And they're showing that now. Again, I don't know if that's factual or any truth to that whatsoever, but I believe that they're starting to formulate the story that the future is Paige, and they might be moving on from Enrique either this season by trade deadline or next season Enrique's gonna leave.
Yeah, I think the general consensus in and around the league in early June was that Kiki Iriafen was the Rookie of the Year favorite. I think Paige has pretty clearly supplanted her. And I think the other question in terms of Rookie of the Year and the best rookies, um, has Sonia Citron risen above
And
Kiki on the overall leaderboard?
Sonia Citron, I don't know if you had a chance to watch that game yesterday, but she was so clutch. I mean, she just plays
Yeah.
with so much confidence. Like her skill is if you really watch her play and you watch the way she moves off the ball, the way she plays defense, her skill level is by far above average than a lot of the rookies coming into the W this year. She's just such an all-around good player, and she's so undervalued. I mean, people are starting to talk about her now, but wow, Sonia Citron is just so impressive, and her and Kiki on Washington together, they're just a formidable duo. But yeah, Paige, all credit goes to Paige right now. Paige is doing her thing. And what I like about Paige, there's a big difference between Paige and other people I won't mention, but Paige comes in with a warm personality. She comes in with a personality that, she loves the W, she loves the people in the W. She doesn't come in with, I'm the shit type of mentality and I can do whatever I want type of mentality. She comes in and she's adored and loved by the veterans, by the other players, by her teammates. And there's a big contrast in how you fit into the W and how you want to help the W get better. And Paige is a prime example of a person who understands and wants to do that.
Yeah, to me, it would seem to be that right now it's Paige and Citron at the very top, and Kiki just a little bit behind number three. And so, being the third best rookie in your league, still really, really darn good. But there has been a little bit of a leveling off for Kiki. Not a plummet. We're not talking about plummeting, but just, not. She set the bar so high in her first several weeks. Anything that you're noticing about Kiki's adjustments and just the league obviously responding to her first excellent month of play? What are you seeing out there on the court for Kiki Iriafen?
Think if you looked at the first month and the games that were played with Washington, Stephanie Dolson was starting alongside with Kiki, and Stephanie Dolson plays outside more and allowed, more room for the 5 out or for positioning down low and for Kiki to play her mid-range game as well as inside. Now you bring in Shakira Austin as a starter, and Shakira Austin likes to play inside more, which moves Kiki to a kind of different role within that whole starting five dynamic. So I think that's an adjustment that has to take place, and I think that's the main cause of the difference in Kiki's gameplay right now. She did have a couple games where she wasn't shooting the ball well, but she played really well yesterday. But I think it's the adjustment of Shakira Austin coming in now and replacing Stephanie Dolson as the starter.
So, what is the thing that Kiki Iriafen can do within this new configuration of the Mystics lineup and how their half court offense operates? You said in previous episodes that Lindsay Gottlieb, the structure that she provided, that Washington really does a lot of similar things, but obviously now with the Shakira Austin changeup, what is the kind of the is it a side adjustment or is it more of like a pregame game plan that Kiki Iriafen needs to carry out a little bit differently?
Think it's a little bit of both. I think that she just has to understand where Shakira wants to play, where her spots are, and then adjust to that accordingly. Because Kiki, if you look at Kiki's game and Shakira's game, Kiki's game is more well-rounded than Shakira. Shakira has that elbow shot, and she's a better inside player. Kiki is good inside and outside. She has that mid-range on the wing, can shoot at the elbow. So it's just understanding where Shakira wants to play more, and then taking her game to balance that out. If she needs to shoot that mid range more on the wing, well, she needs to get her open spots. And some of that onus is on the coaching staff and being able to manage those two, to be able to utilize them both effectively. And some of that is Brittany Sykes understanding where to get her players in position to help them be the best that they can be as well.
Yep, the Mystics played a couple really close games over the weekend. They lost by one to the Dream, and then they beat Paige Beckers and the Wings in overtime on Sunday. So interesting times in Washington with those two elite rookies, Citron and of course Kiki Iriafen, as they make their way through their debut WNBA season. All right, Cece, more stats, more analytics for the teams up and down the WNBA. Let's continue with that, unless you have any other notes on the rookie class.
I just want to talk about Monique Akoa. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. She plays for Phoenix, but this is a rookie that went under the radar completely. She is number 4, when the rookies play as far as statistically is concerned. And she's averaging 25 minutes per game. She's averaging 10.6 per game, 2 rebounds per game, 2 assists, but she's shooting 45% field goal and she's shooting 52% from three. And she's just such an undervalued player right now. And people need to pay attention to what she's doing for Phoenix to help Phoenix do what they do. So just wanted to give her a mention as well. So that's all I got on the rookies. We could talk on and on. I do want to talk about statistically. Uh, there's really not much more to talk about. I just want to talk about the top teams defensive and offensively, which I did do. I do want to take a few minutes to talk about the Connecticut Sun and Rhea Marshall playing yesterday because they were getting their butt whipped. And finally, as you have been saying, hey, why are you sitting her? Well, she was hurt the last couple of games, but they finally let her play the end of the last minute of the first half. Then they let her play the last minute of the third quarter, and then they let her play, for an additional 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. And again, Rhea Marshall scored 5 points or 4 points, something like that. She had three. She played only 11 minutes, 3 minutes, and her plus minus was a 6. You got to let her play. I mean, you have nothing to lose. Let her play so she can feel the offense, so she can get comfortable in the system. Because even though she's out there and she's trying to do her thing, you can tell that she's not comfortable. There, I want to do a film breakdown. And the reason why I want to do a film breakdown on that game yesterday, when Rhea was in the game, is that there were so many times when Rhea would rim run, post up, and they wouldn't get her the ball. And Connecticut had a smaller um, defender on Rhea. I mean, whoever they played had a smaller defender on Rhea.
Valkyries. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a smaller defender on Rhea. And the players would not pass her the ball. And I'm like, what do you have to lose? Pass her the ball because Rhea's good at passing it back out, or she'll turn and she'll make it, she'll miss. But shit, all the players on Connecticut are missing shots on the inside too. They're missing layups. So, that kind of upset me. Like, you got to let her play and you got to let her teammates get comfortable with her. And Rhea was calling for the ball, and which made me mad. Like, give me the ball. She had her hand up, in position correctly, on the right side where she should have had the ball up. And they would just look at her and go someplace else. And I'm like, why? Why? You're losing by 20 points, 30 points. What do you have to lose? Give her the ball. Let her work. If she misses, she misses, but give her the opportunity. This is her time to grow and let her. Sorry, I'm getting passionate because, it's Rhea Marshall and I'm a USC fan. So, but that really made me frustrated. Like, you got to get her in the game more, especially when you're down. Because, like I said, Tina Charles, I'm sorry. I love you, Tina Charles, but, you're not as fast as you used to be. You can't get up like you used to. You still have a pretty decent shot, but defensively, Connecticut is again one of the worst in the league. So uh, I'm not going to go on my rant about Connecticut too much, but they got to let Rhea play. They're just there was just they got to let her play.
Yeah, it's been a recurring theme that when Rhea Marshall does get some minutes, and we're not talking about huge minutes, but like 7 minutes, 8 minutes, or in the case on Sunday, 11 minutes, it's always in garbage time. Like she's always being relegated to mop up duty when the Sun are down 20, 25, 30, 35 points. And so, when you say that she's not getting the ball, well, she's playing with backups. Put her out there with the ones. Put her out there with
No,
some of
she
the
was
better.
playing. She was playing with some of the ones yesterday because she
So the
played the
ones
whole
were
the
still
whole
out there
fourth
in
quarter.
garbage time. Okay.
Yeah, and they weren't getting her. Now Brittany Sykes wasn't out there and so on and so forth. So they did have some backups, but backups that get playing time. They
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
weren't getting her the ball, and they
At
should. I,
least,
I just want to talk about something real quick, some stats here. So when I pull up Marshall, she played 11 minutes. She was 2 for 4, so she took 4 shots. She made two of them, 50%. Um, she was 1 for 1 on her free throws, two defensive rebounds, uh, 3 rebounds total. She was a +6. Guess what? Guess what? Nobody else on their team was a plus anything.
yeah. When they lost to the Liberty by 48, like a few weeks ago, Rhea had the highest plus minus. So
Gotta
it's
let her
like,
play. I don't care if they were playing with reserves or whatever. You gotta let her play.
yeah.
I mean, if you're
And I
gonna put
mean,
Anissa Morrow in there and let Anissa Morrow play, and Anissa Morrow had to get used. She had, it took her some time to fill out what was going on, and I still think there's some questions about her positioning. She reminds me so much of Alyssa Pilly and trying to play that post spot, and she's not a post in the W, but she's now feeling it. She knows where to be in her positioning and rebounding and so on and so forth. And it took her some time. You got to let Rhea play. I mean, you got to let Rhea play.
yeah, I
So
mean, we're almost at the halfway point of the 40 game WNBA regular season schedule. Like this is no longer vague. This is no longer uncertain. Maybe 3 weeks in, you're still kind of finding yourself. The thought process for any WNBA organization is, hey, like maybe we'll hit our stride in June, heading into July and the midpoint of the season, the All-Star break. But we're in late June now. The Sun are buried at the bottom of the WNBA standings. Like this is not a hard choice. This is not unclear. This is a rebuild. This is a
yeah.
full on rebuild. So you need to play the kids. Like this should be
So
beyond
yeah.
obvious at this point. Early June, okay. You still want to see if you can maybe make a run. At this point, cake is baked, right? This is a sealed situation for Connecticut.
So when you look at stats, right, and I understand that the reserves were in there and so on and so forth, but still, when you look at Tina Charles, she was 3 for 9, right? She took 9 shots. She was 3 for 9, and she played 20 minutes. She was 0 for 2 on 3 pointers, 3 for 4 on free throws. She got 3 offensive rebounds, 3 defensive rebounds, six. She was a minus 17 and had 9 points in 20 minutes. So you can't tell me that if Rhea just had more opportunity to play and you let her get used to the flow of the WNBA style of play, that she cannot in some ways help you, at least defensively. You have players on offense that are shooting 3 for 9, 3 for 10. What do you have to lose? I mean, it is mind blowing to me.
And the other thing from a just a pure organizational standpoint, not talking about trying to win games each night. I'm talking about, how you handle various situations. If you are in a rebuilding situation, as the Connecticut Sun definitely are, either you want your less proven players to become stars, or not necessarily stars, but like polished role players who will be able to help you at a higher level to a fuller extent next season. That's one thought process. Or you play these players so that you can develop them into trade chips that you can
Yeah,
get back for
yeah,
bigger, better assets. So if you're a
yeah,
rebuilding team, you have to be playing your developmental players.
yeah,
That is in the nature of what a rebuild is, that you're developing your players either so either they give you more next season, or you can trade them for a bigger return. So like this is just obvious organizational malpractice, not giving Rhea 20 minutes a night. I mean, and I'm not relitigating the past. I'm not saying that it was they should have been playing her 20 minutes a night in May or early June. But now, like you're done in terms of making the playoffs. You're not in the hunt for a playoff spot. You need to be playing the kids from now till the end of the regular season.
yeah. Let her play because one, it'll give her an opportunity to grow and other, like you said, other teams to show, to be able to see what Rhea can do. Because right now Rhea's sitting on the bench, and if something happens next year where she has an option to leave or they want to trade her, nobody knows her game. Nobody can see what's
Right.
her value as a player. You know what I mean? Even for herself. So, when you talk about setting teams up and play, you got to think about setting players up for success too. You drafted her for a reason, so let that reason show now. Let her develop, let her play. So if you guys don't want her next year, she can go play someplace else.
Here, I mean, here's an idea. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not even predicting it. But let's say the Connecticut Sun play Rhea Marshall 20 minutes and like she shows her game, shows what she can do, and then later in the season at the WNBA trade deadline, the Las Vegas Aces send Chelsea Gray to the Sun for Rhea Marshall, maybe a couple other pieces, and like the Connecticut will get like a name player, but the Aces will get kind of that role player piece who might actually add overall value to their roster. Just kind of thinking conceptually, not predicting anything, but like that kind of door could open up, but only if Rhea Marshall gets an actual chance to play.
What's interesting to me is you have a lot of second round players that got picked up in the W this season that are playing well. Look at Nye, who was drafted number 20th or something like that in the second round from Alabama, and she's like the sixth man on the Aces right now. And I always say that the Aces have no bench, which they don't, but Nye is one of the best players coming off the bench for any team in this league. And like I said, she was a second rounder. Um, you know, and she's playing. Look at the player from Dallas who played alongside Rivers at North Carolina State, Isaiah. She's coming. She's starting now. She was a second round pick. I mean, it's just crazy to me. So let her play. She's got to play in order for herself to get better and to help her confidence. Because I just, and Rhea is such a nice person. Rhea is, oh yeah, I'll just take it as it comes. Girl, you need to put your foot down and say, play me now. Ray is just happy to be there.
Yeah, I mean, she's not yet at the point in a pro athlete's career where she can say, play me or trade me, right? Like, it's just not, we're not
Yeah,
that far down the line, doesn't have that seniority, but all she can do is, play well when she's called upon. And, like she's doing that.
yeah,
She just needs more of an opportunity. We both very
yeah.
much agree. We've both been banging that drum all season long. All right, Cece, more stats I'm sure you still have in the holster, ready to share. I
Uh,
think I think a number of fans, CC, would be interested in, the two most enigmatic WNBA teams. Do you have anything unique statistically about the Atlanta Dream and the Seattle Storm. For me, those two teams, night to night, one night to the next, they remain the hardest to predict. I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying they're awful, but just the fluctuations, right? Because the Storm just beat the Liberty, and obviously the Liberty are, not their full selves without Jonquel Jones, but the Storm just, they can beat the best and they can lose to the worst. And the Dream also have those fluctuations. The Dream lost to the Connecticut Sun a week ago, but they had a good winning weekend. They beat both the Mystics and the Chicago Sky. Anything of note statistically about either of those two teams, or for that matter, any other team we haven't talked about yet? We can just throw that into a large pot.
The Seattle Storm and Atlanta Dream are right neck and neck in defensive rating, which is, interesting to me. The Seattle Storm, they rank fifth in the defensive rating, and the Atlanta Dream ranks sixth. And then as far as assists, you talk about the Seattle Storm, they're actually the number two team in assist overall now. So that, yeah, they're averaging almost 23 assists per game as a team. Atlanta Dream is ranked fourth. They're averaging 21. So the average is 20. So they're just above average. And then the assist to turnover ratio, Seattle is number 10. And that's where the problem is. They have a lot of
Yeah, I was
turnovers.
just about to ask. They're number two in assists, so why isn't their record better? Boom,
Yeah.
right there. You just
They
provided the answer.
they have a lot of turnovers, and then Atlanta, they're ranked four in assist, so or assist to turnover ratio, I should say. But yeah, so that's about it where Atlanta and Seattle are concerned. You know, I could go over statistics all day long. I can tell you that the most points allowed, the Golden State Valkyries, they're number two in most points allowed. So but again, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country. So it goes by to what you say. What is their turnover ratio? What's the pace of play, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So when you look at stats and you take a deep dive, it's so interesting because it gets so much more confusing when you take deep dives and look at this stuff. But by far the best team in the W by stats is New York, and the worst team is the Aces.
No, I mean what I learned today is that like assist turnover ratio really, maybe not in all cases, but in most cases, that's gonna be kind of the clarifying statistic because points, assists, you can just get aggregate totals, and that can reflect pace, possessions, style of play. And so ratios, right? Differentials are the kinds of
Yeah,
stats that really, they take the mask off and they reveal how legitimate or how much of an indicator an aggregate stat really is. So CC Clay sharing knowledge not just about statistics, but about totals and differentials and ratios. Like I think that's a really
yeah.
key takeaway for our audience here on the Trojans Wired WNBA podcast. So CC, tell us what you have going on at your Substack and on your YouTube channel. Lots of good things happening
Man,
for
my
for the
Substack,
hardest
yeah,
working women's basketball podcaster around.
I've been out of pocket on my Substack. I'm sorry, you guys, but with my regular job, I've been traveling, and then I've been doing other things with the podcast. So I've just been so completely busy. But I will try and get a Substack out to you guys this week. I do have to travel for work again, so I'll see how that goes. Um, but as far as my YouTube, I just put out a video yesterday when I had the chance to go to the USC Kids Camp. Go look at that video. It's short, it's 6 minutes, but it's a very complete video. I enjoyed my time at Kids Camp. I hope you guys get a chance to watch that video because it's a really fun video. And Matt watched it. He can
I
attest to
watched
it.
it. It's great. Yeah. And it's just 6 minutes, folks. It's definitely worth your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and then Mackenzie Forbes podcast will be airing this Thursday, so make sure you guys take a look at that. And I know I still said I'm going to do a Kennedy breakdown, film breakdown, but I really want to break down this Connecticut um, film so you guys can see what I'm talking about with Rhea and how they were just missing her. So yeah, that's about it. I got Courtney Jacob coming up in July on my podcast. It's already been recorded. It's just timing of when it's going to be released. And then our Big Ten. We'll air on Saturday. If you haven't watched that first episode, it's already up on my YouTube channel. And Matt and I will be getting together to do that second thing coming up this week. So look for that on Saturday. And then Truth in the Trenches with Cameo and I. That video is out. I'm getting really good feedback on that podcast. So if you hadn't had a chance to watch that podcast, please do so. And that'll air every other Thursday.
Okay, and that you just released your second installment of Truth in the Trenches. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Second installment. Yeah.
Okay, so like we have forward momentum with everything. Big Ten shows gotten off the ground, Truth in the Trenches
Yeah.
gotten off the ground. We're rolling through the off season with CC Clay. Lots of good stuff. Any other final things before we go?
No, just hey, you guys, thanks for your support. Keep supporting, keep sharing and liking. It's really important, especially as we get closer to the season, because when we get closer to the season, I'm going to be ultra focused on USC women's basketball, and I know that's what you guys would like to see the most of. It's summertime right now, not a lot going on, but please keep liking and sharing my YouTube channel, so by the time season comes around, people know it's there.
All right, plenty to talk about. Like it's the off season, but the wheels keep turning, and there's so much to talk about in the world of women's basketball. So CC Clay and I will be back next week with our WNBA show. But yes, stay tuned for our next Big Ten early bird season preview episode. That's going to be coming up as well. So for CC Clay, this is Matt Zemek. Thanks for watching and listening to Trojans Wired. We will see you next time.